And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
We are exploited. We are downtrodden. We are denied not only civil rights, but even human rights. So the only way we're going to get some of this oppression and exploitation away from us or aside from us is come together against the common enemy.
I don't want you to protest. I don't want you to riot. I don't want you to write to your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the street. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being. God damn it. My life has value.
Get together, have a few laughs.
Welcome to the Iowa Talk Guys podcast. I'm your host, Teepee.
And I'm E-Rock.
I'm your host, Theo.
And tonight we're bringing you a special. We have an author, a fellow Iowan, that has written a book.
You're damn right.
That he did some awesome research on. And his name is Mr. Jonathan Butler. Hey, John, how you doing?
Hey, guys, what's up?
Not much, man. Just hanging out here in Iowa.
He asked you to introduce him, Jon Butler, by the way.
I'm sorry, Mr. Jon Butler. Sorry, I wrote down Jonathan on my paper. Yeah.
Dr. Ph.D.
J.R.R.R.R.
Butler. It's Mr. Butler to you, sir. Yeah.
So, yeah, we're here to talk about the banned book, huh?
The banned book, yeah. Which you were gracious enough to share a copy with us, and we read. And it was pretty fascinating.
Castle in the Pasture.
Strange History of a Courthouse.
Yeah. You can get that on Amazon. Mm-hmm. For our listeners out there, check it out.
So all three of you had time to read it?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I glanced through it.
So where do we begin? I guess I should say technically it might not technically have been banned. It may have just been rejected for being added to the collection at the library. I haven't made any more... I've only talked to one other library as far as getting it on the shelves. I haven't made any progress there. The library that rejected it was the library that I wrote it in. I spent about 3 months and a lot of hours reading, taking notes, writing, taking pictures, and so forth. So, yeah, when the book was finished, I was really excited. I went to the library there and dropped off a copy, and then a few weeks later, essentially they didn't want it. They didn't want to put it on the shelves. They couldn't give me a straight answer. It got to the point where I was like, I had them pull up their policy, and I said, can you show me exactly what part of your policy and exactly what part of my book are at odds, which they could not do. It was a very unprofessional, just kind of get out of here, weirdo guy type of thing, like we can't help you type thing. So that was that. Now, I understand how controversial this stuff is. So when I was writing the book and realized I was going to write a book and put my fucking name on it, and I had to be able to stand up for it, I knew friends and family would have a problem with it. I understand it. This material's challenging. I didn't think a librarian would dishonor that process of someone spending all those hours in the library making something like this happen. So it actually, it was upsetting to hit that wall. It was kind of you hear about people, they try to ring the bell or blow the whistle or da-da-da, and people, okay, you're crazy, shut up. No one hears from them. You don't really think that actually happens that bad, but yeah, they wanted nothing to do with my book. They couldn't give me a legitimate reason. And so, yeah, it was essentially banned from the library I wrote it in.
That's wild, man.
Yeah.
One of the problems they said was that I didn't, and there's a lot of absurdities. I'll just touch upon this one quick. One of the problems they said was that I didn't have enough citation of my sources. Completely untrue. But the real absurd part about that is that they were actually my first source. So when I went into that library in June, poking around, watching John Levi videos, I went in and I said, hey, can I see the oldest pictures you have of town? Do you have photos, construction photos of the courthouse? Got everything out for me, showed me all the pictures. Couldn't find one. Actually got a hold of the Historical Society, which was right across the street. Someone was there, and they said, yeah, send him over. So showed me everything the library had. Didn't find it. Found a couple interesting things I didn't include in the book, but that's another story. So she showed me all the pictures. I went across, sat with the Historical Society, said the same thing. What do you have for construction photos of the courthouse? They pulled out a book with, of course, like every town, the one construction photo of the building done. And I was in shock. I sat there with this old lady and just looking at this photo, and I was just like, oh my God. It was, when you start getting privy to this stuff, kind of a fake construction photo like that is glaring. And so I sat.
Let's start at the beginning of the book, though.
What year is this?
Yeah, let's.
This was last summer.
I mean, the year of the building.
Let's hold it right there with dealing with the librarian. But what are we talking about here? As far as your research to do what? What
set you on the path?
What are the particulars about this courthouse? Is what I'm asking. That set you off.
Well, like I said, I'm a big fan of John Levi. So having been, watching a lot of his videos and getting an idea of these kinds of things, I was in Grundy Center and I looked over at that building. I was like, wow, that'd be really hard to make in 1890 with no power tools. Let's see what the library has to say. Maybe they have any documentation that can verify the narrative around this building. And of course, a fake construction photo. And that hit me because, you watch researchers and their evidence and you're like, okay, interesting. You go and you try to apply it to your own town, your own small town, Iowa, and boom, you find a very obviously fake construction photo. I mean, what do you do? I mean, I'm obviously validates a lot of.
And this is before Photoshop.
Well,
that's the thing you learn about. That's the thing you learn about this kind of technology, photography and whatnot. As long as they've been able to take pictures, they've been able to manipulate them and take things out, change, before they develop.
They blame it on the flash on the camera or whatever, but you can clearly see especially
no, not just mistakes. In the late 1800s, photography was more of a craze to make crazy photos than it was actually to document reality. There's more, it's
like yellow journalism type stuff
all along. What's that?
Like that yellow journalism type stuff back in the late 1800s or whatever, where they would just write fake articles and just for fun, right?
Well,
and people thought, but they would write them in a manner that people thought they were real.
Postcards, maybe.
Yeah.
But anyway.
So yeah, when I saw that photo, and I was like, okay, so there's a story here. Initially I was like, okay, I'll make a little 10-minute video where I just show this photo and then list off all the reasons why it's absurd and nonsense. In the process of doing that, I realized I needed a script, so I wasn't, so I could very clearly lay out all the reasons. And then I was like, okay, well, I'm going to put all this time into writing a script to do a little documentary about a fake construction photo. And I got to thinking, well, actually, in the process, I was like, all right, I'm gonna look into some of these other things. So I just dove into the narrative, spent all that time reading, researching, and every piece of the puzzle pointed to fraud, pointed to the story being untrue. So then I was like, okay, well, I should write a book. There's too much here. I'm already going to be doing a lot of writing. I'm not really a YouTuber. A book is more my style.
And this courthouse is out in Grundy Center, Iowa, you said, right?
Correct.
The middle of nowhere.
Iowa. Middle of nowhere.
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
And supposedly they were having to get cement. It was on contract to bring in from St. Louis or some crap and all this other nonsense.
Well, you look into the claims of where they don't even know how these buildings were made. So they would make claims about the mortar and the cement, and the people who wrote that narrative didn't know anything about construction.
Yeah, you had mentioned the sourcing of the foundation material is from Kasota, Minnesota, like sandstone from there, or local native from Grundy Center, right? Limestone, I would imagine?
Well, I don't know, but every claim they made that I found in the narrative that they made about where the stone was from and what kind of stone it was and how it was shipped there and everything, none of it adds up. So some of the blocks look like sandstone to me. It could be, with a lot of these old world buildings, the actual material they're using could be one that's not around anymore, and I definitely don't know for sure to say. But I do know from analyzing all the claims about like one train car being full of one block,
right?
And they had to cut it at the train yard to move it and all this.
Oh yeah,
just rubbish. Just something someone would say who doesn't know anything about the construction process and would try to make some claim to get your attention, like, oh, the first stone they brought in filled a whole train car. Ooh, okay. Well,
they had to cut the train car up to get it out.
Exactly. How'd they get it out of there? Yeah, and as far as where they sourced the stone, I don't know. But in doing research, this is an interesting thing I didn't put in the book. I did do a little digging into the Elmhurst mines just north of Cleveland, which is probably an old world mine itself. I think they were claiming a lot of stone came from this place, but I think the people operating this mine at the time didn't actually create it. They were kind of just they inherited it, and the stones that they were pulling out of this place, they were making grindstone. So it's something very simple to make. They don't need to actually quarry and, cut these flat faces down in through the rocks. But yeah, I don't know exactly as far as the sourcing of the material, but I do remember the Amherst mines came up. But when you look into the Amherst mines, it sounds like a bullshit history too. Like, pictures of the first machines that cut this, the names, all of it. It's just a really flimsy narrative.
The overall premise of Old World architecture is an alternative history. Some people theorize that a vast, technologically advanced, Tartarian empire, emanating from North Central Asia or thereabouts, either influenced or built vast cities and infrastructure all over the world. Tartaria, or Tartary, though never a coherent empire, was indeed a general term for North Central Asia. The Tartarian Empire fell, either via a sudden cataclysm, or a steady antagonistic decline, and perhaps as recently as 100 years ago. Its great buildings were buried, and its history was erased. After this Great Reset, the few surviving examples of Tartarian architecture were falsely recast, as the work of contemporary builders, who could never have executed buildings of such grace and beauty, and subjected them to clumsy alterations.
So it's really interesting, and we would really encourage our listeners to go check out the book for sure, because I found it fascinating, and I could see though, because I've already been kind of looking into this old world architecture stuff for a while now. Probably, well, I wouldn't say for a while, probably for like the past year. So to me, like I said, I found it fascinating. The book was awesome. I was like, all right, this is really good.
Thanks, man.
But I could see where somebody who is brainwashed still to the system, right? The narrative. Mm-hmm. It's a hard pill to swallow, right?
Sure. Sure. But you look at the book, and most of what I did was put their claims out there, their dates, their names, their time frames. I scoured everything that had anything they said about the courthouse and put all those pieces together. I didn't even have to accuse them of anything and just show how absurd it is.
Well, you added some interesting facts as well about how difficult that would have been, and in fact, like down to the amount of available days over the course of the 3 years,
right? And
that they would have had to have built this courthouse.
The contractor bankrupted himself.
Yeah.
That's the hard. That's every one of these narratives.
Sealy of Fremont, Nebraska.
Yeah.
All these stories have a sad luck tale, so it takes your attention away from all the other nonsense claims about the building, and it makes it seem like the person telling the story has this kind of grip on the story. Oh well, da-da-da went bankrupt. Oh really? Oh wow. Okay, that's history. That's the history. Somebody knows some little thing like that, and it's.
Paul Bunyan created the Great Lakes too, right?
I just watched a Mind Unveiled video about the Great Lakes. It was pretty interesting. Are you guys familiar with the YouTube channel Mind Unveiled?
No.
Ooh, you guys got to get in on that. It's good stuff. Like anything, it's you can't say you completely agree with anything one researcher says, but yeah, you guys would like Mind Unveiled.
All right, yeah, cool. I'll check that out. So that's really interesting. You initially set off to make just a documentary video for your YouTube channel, right? And then it turned into this book.
Not really. I didn't even have a YouTube channel. I started the YouTube channel for the book. I just found the photo and knew I had to do something because it was so glaring.
But it's badass.
The first idea was a video.
Okay. And then, the book it's an easy read. I think you put it together pretty good too.
Oh, yeah.
And you ask a lot of great questions in there.
Great pictures to go along with it as well. To help visualize.
Actually, that was one of the problems that the library said they had with it, is that I asked too many questions.
Are you serious?
Hell of a thing, fellas. Hell of a thing for a librarian to do, to let her personal opinions get in the way of any individual citizen's access to literature.
Yeah, no kidding.
That's not how libraries work. Going through this process, I realized, they aren't public libraries. They're state libraries. And if you restrict anyone's access to literature because of your personal opinion, you cease to be a librarian at that point, and this building and all the books in it are something else. And when somebody comes along and spends all that time in there reading all these books, that's how a library stay alive. You don't stuff them full of state books and say, it's done, there's our knowledge. People need to read, people need to write new books. You go in there, you read 10 books, a new book comes out, you put it on the shelves. That's how libraries stay alive.
If you would have labeled it as fiction, they probably would have put it out.
She also asked if I was a historian. I said, I am now.
No shit.
Dude, that's crazy. Yeah, I guess I kind of feel like kind of being betrayed by the place, too, that you did all that research into. And
in a way, yeah. No, like I said, I was expecting friends and family to have a hard time with it. To have library reject it was like...
Maybe you should have put in some strap-ons and getting sucked up.
Wow, dude. Like the books that they're giving out to school libraries now?
Dye my hair blue before I go in there.
Yeah, call her a bigot.
Actually, I did say that. I was like, you can't give me a good reason. This is discrimination. And she's like, it's not discrimination, whatever. And I actually called back, and I was like, you gotta give me a good reason for this. You can't do this. This is discrimination. And I think it just was kind of left at that. Said she would, email me or whatever. Nothing came of it. I have not been back there since. If I had the means, I would probably sue, because this is discrimination. If this is how they want to run their libraries, that's another thing. Going through this process and seeing all this evidence laid out, it's like, I have to get this information to the hands of the judge who sees cases at this courthouse. Somebody who makes a living out of looking at information and seeing if it fucking adds up. Hey, look at your own courthouse. I haven't made those steps yet. I still would like to get the book into the hands of whatever judge sees cases there. You would think the people of that town would want to know. You think it'd be you think the people that work at that courthouse were not very helpful with me when I first started looking for information. I was like, okay, I'm done here. That's the other good thing about my book. I got information from historians and genealogists in 3 different states.
That's awesome.
This isn't about me. This isn't just what Grundy Center wants to tell about their history. This is information from all over, and those other people had no idea what I was looking for.
Wow.
Yeah, that's
fired up, fellas.
That is.
I can tell you're passionate about it.
Amazing story,
fired up
man.
over here, boys.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Well, I thought about it. I was like, wow, a banned book, kind of a badge of honor, but also I should, ring the bell about this. I never did. I never really talked to anybody about it. So yeah, you guys are pretty much the first to hear about it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Got a hold of the local newspaper.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. Also got a hold of the local newspaper, sent them a free copy of the book, talked to them, and never heard back. They want nothing to do with it.
Yeah, even small town Iowa newspapers, they want everything just to be smooth sailing. They don't want
to rock the boat.
They have an agenda just like everybody else.
Yeah,
I've got a newspaper in mind right here in our area.
Yeah.
Yeah, if they publish stuff that the community doesn't like, then people cancel their subscriptions and they lose money. So
it's a threat to our democracy.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. And John, you kind of say that in your book too, is like, why would they allow this to be our history with it has so many conflicting stories of how things happen. Even down to the pricing on stuff and like you said before, total absurdities in the whole story. And it should get people kind of frustrated with it a little bit, at least fired up about it, because, it's like, hey, if they're willing to lie about this little thing about my small, tiny courthouse in my tiny town in Iowa, like, then what the hell else are they willing to lie to me about?
Yeah, and it's not just, we thought it was Bill, but it was actually Bob. They didn't get the wrong answer. It's an intentional deception. And that's another reason I'm fired up, is because it's not me. This isn't me not knowing how to interpret information and be like, I just want it to be none of that. So if people are going to reject the book, ban the book, or think that the book speaks for itself. That's why I wrote it too, because I knew there was so much there that you try and sit down and tell someone all this in a conversation, you never know how that's going to go. But with a book, with everything laid out, with the documentation, with the multiple sources, if people want to look away and keep their head in the sand, go ahead. My book isn't for you if you want to keep your head in the sand. You want to accuse me of spreading false information or anything like that? Wrong. Read the book. Tell me exactly what about it is unscientific. That's another problem here. We don't have a scientific approach to analyzing history. I tried to do that with my book. That's why I asked so many questions. I said, how could this be? I wasn't going to say, it's definitely false. I said, how could this be?
Yeah.
I even invited the state historians to, that's another group that didn't get back to me. I invited them to say, hey, look at all this research I did about our history that none of you have done yet. Do you want to sit down and show me what you know? We can. No, of course, none of that. So I tried to be scientific. I tried to, reach across the aisle. The newspaper doesn't want it. Library doesn't want it. Historic Society doesn't want it. So
it's wild.
Keep your fucking heads in the sand.
You could always take a copy and just go, oh, shit.
A few moments later.
Hey, guys, I lost you.
Hey, sorry.
No,
that was weird.
We're getting too close to the truth.
Yeah.
I hope you got most of that. That was a pretty good one.
Yeah, no, you got all of it, and then you right at your conclusion, it just dropped out.
Okay. Whoa. I couldn't tell when you guys...
What was that? Something just dropped and shattered here as soon as I put my hand did this.
Shit. I better calm it down, huh?
No, man. The state of Iowa doesn't want us knowing what's going on.
What? Did you knock that over?
All right. Apparently, there was a candle got knocked over on top of the beer fridge out here.
Do you guys record in a shack out in the field or something?
We literally do, yeah. Can you hear the wind behind us?
No, but I remember hearing you guys say that on the show once.
Yep. Record out of a shack in the middle of a cornfield out here in Iowa.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes traffic drives by. Usually it's tractors when it's nice out. They're out and about today, too. Drove by.
Planting season.
Yep. I drove by a couple on the way here. But anyway, no, yeah, it's pretty wild. And like I said, I know it's a hard pill for people to swallow. Mm-hmm. But why not? Why would they not lie to us about that?
I did find a lot of interesting things. I wanted the book to be quick, and I wanted every proof to be a home run. So there was all kinds of little weird things I could have. And when I was writing the book, I thought, I'm going to do another edition. There's a lot here, but I really want to get this out, so I'll just do another edition when I put together all these other chapters. And so yeah, there was looked like some fuckery with the maps and with a lot of the histories of everywhere. There's some population shit going on, trying to connect other dots between how these Masons knew each other in a time without, phones and whatnot. But nothing really, really obvious, nothing really a home run that I didn't put in the book. So there's other little things that if anyone ever...
So no spoiler alerts.
No.
So, yeah, that was really interesting, too, the Freemasonry, the Freemasonic cornerstone.
Well, it's everywhere, and everywhere. You read into the history of any of this stuff, and eventually you find some wealthy guy involved, and look into his life and dig around, and almost always somewhere in in some biography or obituary of this person's life, they'll have to mention, oh yeah, motherfucker was a Mason. Time and time again, look into this stuff. And I, in going and writing the book and coming across this so much, I called the Masonic Lodge in town in Cedar Falls. I called a couple of different Masonic lodges in the area and asked them for if they had a record of this ceremony that I wrote about in the book. And so, yeah, in writing the book, I did spend a little time reaching out to them, looking into the whole Masonry, trying to make sense of what it is. And obviously, well, it's not my specialty, but one thing I think I've come to realize about it is that it's not what it used to be. The Masonic fraternity isn't what it used to be. Any old joker can join, and they might not quite have the deep influence. And there might even be two. There might even be, oh, this is the Masonic Lodge, and we all sit around, we're a bunch of guys.
Drink beer, eat peanuts, play euchre.
Some kind of neutered version of the Masons that the public knows about. And then maybe back in the day, it was a different thing.
Well, the higher you go up in the ranks, the more you are told, and the more responsibilities, the more secrets you have to hold. I was actually a Freemason.
Oh, wow. Well, do tell.
Yeah, I was a 3rd degree Freemason, Master Mason.
Bullshit. I can't tell if you're fucking with me or not.
No, I'm not fucking with you at all, dude. But
okay, so what was your experience?
It was an interesting one. But like everything that I learned in the lodge, you can pretty much learn online now if you dig into it. You know what I mean? But the further you get in rank, the more, like I said, the more secrets you are revealed to you or whatever, the more stuff you hold. So, I mean, there's a lot of people, a lot of business owners, a lot of old farmers and families and stuff that are in lodges and stuff like that. But you're right, they also do have these other, they call it the blue lodges. So those are the ones that are doing the, the charity,
like
dinners.
The Eagle and the Moose and stuff like that.
No,
sell Tootsie Rolls.
No, these are this is like the face of Freemasonry, where they're doing the potlucks for charity fundraiser stuff. You see a lot of the Shriners; they're getting involved in the parades and stuff and everything.
Going circles, those little tiny bikes.
This is to raise, and a lot of the Freemason, the Blue Lodge stuff. They do that with the Shriners, the children's hospitals. That's the face of it. But the further you get up in rank and stuff, it's the darker things get. You have to have a sponsor to get in, and like one of the only precursors that you need is that you need to believe in a higher power, a God, some type of higher power. It doesn't matter who.
God with a God with a capital G.
That's right.
Specify.
Well, yeah, God with a capital G.
God with a capital G.
And yeah, the further you get into the degrees, the more you learn about who that capital G actually is, which God it is. Right?
It's a good name for a rapper.
God with capital G.
Capital G. But no, so
you're not involved anymore?
Hell no. After I realized what it is, because in reality, dude, it starts off, it's like a soft core form of Satanism, and I didn't really get down with that once I found out some other stuff. So I quit, and it turned out my sponsor, he turned out to be a real piece of shit, too. He was like choke raping his wife. No, like real, he was like choke raping his wife and shit, and like all this craziness, dude. Yeah, he just turned out to be a real scumbag. So I'm like, yeah, good thing I got away from that dude and all that garbage.
What, did he go too far?
Huh?
Did he go too far?
Apparently.
Just couldn't get out the safe word.
Holy moly.
Not surprising based on all the scams we find people involved in that group connected to.
Yeah.
Not surprising at all.
Yeah, and he comes from like a line of Masons too, like they're all in his family and stuff.
I think the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry is that one of the more powerful.
That's one of one of the older ones that goes all the way back. Like you even did the research in your book that goes all the way back to Scotland.
Sure, yeah, and that's another thing. And with any of these groups, or almost anything in history, it gets really murky the further you get back, and it's hard to get a straight answer.
Yeah.
I think that's just an overall general problem with our history, with all the deception and mysteries and misinterpretations and the victors writing the story.
The victors of every war, that's what I was about to say, are the ones who write the history books.
Yep, that's the way you got to think about it.
I think that's a good way to kind of ease people into these ideas, because you try and say, oh, well, our history is wrong, and people are, oh, well, you're crazy. You say things like, oh, well, history is written by a racist government, and it's not true. People are like, oh, yeah, our history is not true. Or you say, oh, well, maybe the history of the Iraq War is going to be different in the history books than what you experienced when it was happening.
Right.
So, yeah, how real is history? We see it happening in our lifetimes.
Yes.
How easy would it be to fucking pull the wool 100 years ago? Especially with all those living in the shadow of those fucking asylums. Jesus Christ.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, that was another thing I wanted to get into, too, with those asylums. That's a whole crazy...
Yeah.
That chapter kind of came out of the blue. It did, in some ways, maybe it didn't fit in with the book. I could have been a little more strict, a little more direct in why I included a chapter about the asylums. If I was talking about a building, I could have done a little more to make it fit in with the book. But I think it helps to illustrate what kind of society we're looking back at.
Absolutely, yeah. And then there you go out to hit on the monster study that happened in Davenport, Iowa in 1939.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Did you happen to find out what institute that took place in? You had the names of the doctors.
It might have been a hospital in Davenport.
Was it Annie Whitmire, maybe? Does that name ring a bell?
Or maybe some... it was through the University of Iowa, so if University of Iowa had some fucking facility down there at that time that they were doing this shit, it could have been there.
Yeah. And
that was an easy one for people to... There was a lot of... That was very public, and they had, they got punished for it, so it was an easy one for people to...
They took their licks, so to speak.
Well, it's... you do mention in the book that like they kind of wanted to keep things under wraps around that time because of the eugenics programs that were happening in Nazi Germany at the moment, right?
They had a story against an enemy, right?
So the funny thing is though those eugenics programs, the American Medical Association in the 20s sent doctors over to teach the Germans when Nazi Germany was our friends.
The good doctors were working with each other.
Yeah. So, and then once they became the axis for evil, they're like, "Oh no, that's very bad what they're doing over there. Very, very bad."
So that's actually
where did they learn such behavior? They're barbarians.
But they sure love David Hasselhoff.
Yeah, that's actually part of the story of Operation Paperclip. Is that what's interesting is that so many of the brilliant Nazi party member,
Braun, etc.
Scientists, chemists, biologists, you name it, in all sorts of different various horrible forms of warfare were oftentimes educated in the United States or rubbed elbows and considered Americans colleagues and whatnot prior to the war.
And some of their studies, yeah. And then they got jobs for the State Department and stuff, and
afterwards,
Department of Energy after the war ended, and
just a few.
So, I mean, you're familiar with Operation Paperclip, obviously, right?
Yeah, very. And sometimes I wonder how much of it was twisting of the truth.
So
just sort of like a disclosure type of a deal to.
Well, like a cover story to make it.
Yeah, murky
like
the water.
Dig into history. There's this truth. They plant little truths that are like that look bad, that they want people to think, oh, we didn't want you to know about that. Find out this truth, and it's like, oh, did you actually know this? And with everything that goes down with the different nations of the world coordinating on fraudulent history and fraudulent cosmology, maybe fraudulent bankers' wars,
archaeological ruins.
It wouldn't be surprising if there was something about Operation Paperclip that wasn't as, Wernher von Braun got lucky. He could have had his head cut off, but instead he got a good job.
With maybe NASA in Texas.
Maybe his fate wasn't so up in the air, and it was just, he got lucky. I don't know.
Yeah, he was able to move off, and he started a university in Alabama in Huntsville. College, he started it. So the striking thing I found in these studies that when I went and did some more research on the monster study, which I think we're going to have to put together our own show on that, because it's there's a lot of striking similarities to some of the MK Ultra programs. Did you ever research any of that stuff?
Not in depth, but I'm I'm very familiar with it.
They had the control group of these kids where they're like, oh, you're doing really good. You're getting better with your stutter and this and that. It was stuttering kids. The monster study was what happened. They took 22 stuttering black orphan children and put the University of Iowa put out on a little program, a little scientific experiment, quote unquote, right? And one group of the kids were being like given praises and taught, hey, good job. And then these other kids are like, you shouldn't talk at all. They were just talking down to him and treating him like shit. Like, your stutter's so horrible. Yeah, your stutter's so horrible. You should just shut your mouth from now on because you're stupid. And yeah, essentially the same stuff happened.
Imagine being a fucking kid.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Especially in an orphan where you have nobody to protect you.
Completely vulnerable.
Yeah, dude, it's heartbreaking. Absolutely heartbreaking. It makes me want to...
And then imagine you're a presidential candidate and people are saying, oh, it's just a stutter problem. You can't make fun of him.
Oh my gosh. E-Rock. All right, anyway. Yeah, it's absolutely heartbreaking what happened in that program. That study, supposedly they call it, right?
To say the least.
But like I said, the same thing just 20 years later, less than 20 years later, same thing happened to Ted Kaczynski on a different level. And then he ended up becoming, the Unabomber.
Yeah. They really fucked with him, huh?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. At a very, very deep level.
Yeah.
Yeah. I read his manifesto years and years ago. And then after reading that, I did a little dive on his life, reading books about him and anything else he wrote.
Yeah.
I don't remember a whole lot of it, but yeah, I do remember reading that they convinced him to get a sex change.
Yeah.
And he was...
At one point, he was about to do it.
And he was about to do it. He was fucking driving to do it and then thought better. Yeah, so I don't remember.
And the crazy thing that the people that were talking shit to him and telling him how stupid and dissecting like his theories and stuff weren't even like other theoretical scientist students or whatever. The thing really? That Teddy, they were law students. Yeah, they were being used in that program as well. Basically, like, hey, you want to get a head start on being a piece of shit to people in court? We'll give you a job. We'll give you a job as soon as you graduate if you go into this program. And I'm sure some of those fucking students did. It's crazy.
Yeah, you got all the deception and everything going on. It's a lot of people signing NDAs.
Yeah,
a lot of people signing their soul away. A lot of people dying with some fucking crimes. People, how could they keep all this a secret? You couldn't get this many people to keep your secret. If they're fucking criminals, they'll shut up about it.
If they're in an NDA,
they'll shut up about it.
If the rest of their life was going to be in a 8x8,
how could you get entire civilizations of people to believe something isn't true?
Well, here's the other thing. The Manhattan Project, compartmentalization, you're on a need-to-know basis. You don't think that they've perfected that at this point in the game?
Yep.
Right? Yep. And that's where people are like, oh, well, information about the Manhattan Project still got out. I'm like, yeah, that happened back then, not now, especially when everything's digital.
Compartmentalization, and then also probably fucking with each other from within.
Oh, yeah. Keeping it competitive, keeping everybody on their toes.
Anyone in the know, even them, it's like, yeah, maybe they know a couple things, but that doesn't mean they have like complete knowledge. So, things can get a little wild if you refer to the proverbial they and them knowing things we don't know. But I think it's important to remember, maybe that they might know a few things we don't know, but they don't have any kind of godlike knowledge.
No, they would think they do. They want to be, right?
If they're aspiring to, but well, you know how it goes with the dark side of the force. Bites you in the ass, right?
Yeah, every time.
Yeah,
every time. Yeah, man. So yeah, it's pretty wild. Like I said, you did an awesome deep dive. When you definitely intrigued me when you reached out. I was like, hey, you want to talk about my banned book, this and that, about old. I think. Well, you just said it was a banned book about a courthouse in Iowa. And then I think I'd ask you if it was like, is this like mud flood related type stuff? And you're like, yeah, but not. I don't call it that. Which I'm not. I don't really buy into the mud flood either. But the old world architecture is definitely.
Well, it's not that I don't. It's not that I don't buy into the mud flood. There was clearly some kind of event that
Younger Dryas or something like that.
Some kind of inundation with dirt from either a traditional flood or some kind of other event that we're not told about. But I don't center around that. Same with I didn't use the word Tartaria in the book.
Oh yeah.
So these
weren't about that. I was even thinking of that earlier today. Like, you can study all this stuff. You can write books and for your whole life, and you don't have to ever say that word.
Yeah.
I think people and I think in recent years that it's kind of lost it's been overused to try and say too much, and then of course the people who don't get it will use it as a punching bag. But it's one of those things where it's like, okay, look at old maps, look at old books. There was a nation. They had a flag. They're mentioned in so many different sources.
Oh yeah.
It's not controversial as to whether or not they existed or not. Leave it at that.
I was in the library at the Iowa State Capitol, and on display they have a dictionary from like 1918 out on display.
In a case?
No. I flipped through it, dude. Snapped some photos of Tartaria.
Yeah, it's there. It's not some kind of fictional word. No, I didn't see that. I was there late last year.
Yeah, I was up there just a couple weeks ago.
When I asked, they don't even know what books they have there. They don't let people go up into that library.
Yeah,
but they don't even have a catalog. They don't have those book catalog. They don't know what's up there.
They're allegedly all law books.
Yeah, that's what they said.
Mm-hmm. But
yeah.
I don't know, they have some old stuff on display there too. It was really cool. But even that, the story behind the Capitol, how that was built, is kind of.
Well, it's all horseshit, just like the rest of it. All those books are law books.
That's what they said.
Law number 8,500,000.
That's right. I'm like, damn.
And you go to the asylum.
How long have we been in state?
How many law books for a country where they're pulling wagons with horses? Okay.
Right? Yeah, dude. Come on. Yeah, no, it's wild. It's definitely wild, man. So
it wasn't the Nephilim giants that built it?
Nephilim is another word not in my vocabulary, but as far as there being larger people in the past, I think that's pretty obvious to anyone who studies history.
Yeah. Lincoln even talked about it in that Niagara Falls speech.
Yeah, he did. There
was giants.
Boy.
I don't think these were the Nephilim giants of the men of old and renown. Those are like the Greek gods and stuff and titans. And
okay.
Me personally, that's what I think. But that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah. There's a lot to that too.
Yeah.
There's a lot to unpack there.
Allegedly, they found giant skeletons in Iowa. Some people say up at effigy mounds for one.
Yeah, there's a bunch of mounds around here.
I've been to one mound. I went to the mound in Dayton, checked it out. Actually, yeah, we can talk about it for a second if you want.
Yeah.
I'm planning on doing a little history video about a bunch of different sites in Iowa, and one video will be about mound. I have gone to the Dayton one, like I said. It looks fake.
The mound looks fake?
Thing. Yeah, the mounds are an interesting thing. I think it's like everything, a little bit of truth and a little bit of hiding a whole bunch of shit.
Oh, yeah.
So part of it is if native people, well, again, how'd they build this without shovels and wheelbarrows? People on a calorie budget aren't going to do all that physical labor as a monument to a dead person.
No, they carried the dirt with deer skin bags on their backs. Come on, man. That's
the other thing too. Is if these mounds are thousands of years old, did the same tribe go to them year after year and make sure no mulberry trees sprouted out? Because I have a sense of what the Iowa landscape is like. And if you leave a pile of dirt for 600 years. You're not going to see it again. It will be covered and covered and covered multiple times.
Bird shit, mulberries.
Yeah.
For these mounds to be thousands of years old and have no trees, and that's another thing too. Wouldn't the native people? Wouldn't they be more inclined to let trees grow out of these places? The bones of their ancestors nourish new life.
Right.
So there's real problems with the story of the mounds, and the same people who. Peddle a false narrative about the architecture. It's the same thing with mounds. They don't know. They come up with an idea they want people to think, and then they try and fit everything in there, and they hope nobody comes along and finds more evidence than they do, which they have very little, so it won't be hard.
They have people working at the library to defend the story voraciously.
Here's a juicy one I've never shared with anyone, and I've never heard anyone say this. Something I may have thought up on my own. People wonder how this mud flood could have happened. I think it was John Levi suggested the mud flood could have happened from some kind of direct energy weapon. So they had some kind of direct energy weapon that could liquefy the earth and cause all kinds of chaos. So we see technology that can create geoglyphs that you can only see from high altitude. How are they doing this?
Right.
My idea is that
those lines down in South America, the Nazca lines, right? Yeah.
Yep, everywhere. It's the idea is that if the mud flood was caused by a direct energy weapon, maybe some of these mounds were also created by a direct energy weapon. It's a kind of thing where you can point it at the ground and get it to liquefy, or you could point it at the ground and get it to do a shape.
Magic.
Something to write a story about in some rocks.
I mean, that's all technology is. Like, think about a cell phone. If you went back 50 years and showed somebody your smartphone,
it'd look like magic.
You're
Absolutely.
a fucking sorcerer.
You bet.
Yeah.
Of course, yeah.
You know what I mean? Especially if they saw a smart home where you're casting, I can turn on my TV from here, I can shut my garage, I can start my car, all with this device in my hand. I can turn or open the freaking refrigerator now, right? All this shit.
I can regulate the temperature of the meat on my smoker.
Yeah, all from this phone and sit my fat ass in my lazy boy. Somebody 50 years ago, 60 years ago.
The world is getting better. Thank your leaders. Thank Elon Musk. The world
is so benevolent. Thank you. Yeah. I mean,
the mound I went and saw in Dayton, Iowa, was on top of a bluff, and it was tiny. So, how a mound that is not even knee high is going to keep its shape for thousands of years up on top of a bluff in Iowa with trees all around? The people who are claiming that this was built 2,000 years ago by native people have a lot of work to do to scientifically verify that claim. You work with trees, you work with dirt. That's just not how the landscape works. It's not, that mound isn't going to sit there for 2,000 years and keep its shape. Period.
You think it's maybe if
some of the mounds definitely could have been from a previous culture who that was their burial ritual. Sure, fine, but some of them don't add up. And there's still the question of, okay, well, then how'd they build it? Okay, well, it wasn't built by primitive people. You're hiding a previous humanity that had the ability to do this easily. That's how it seems to me.
So you think maybe these mounds, if it was some type of direct energy weapon, they got possibly radiated?
What do you mean?
To where, like, radiation poisoning or radiation on the ground where nothing's going to grow from them or anything like that?
Oh,
or animals
I don't know.
Birds don't want to land on them and shit on them, you know?
I don't know, but I don't know. It's possible, but I wouldn't think so. It seems like the Iowa landscape can start shooting up green really quick, in pretty much any circumstance. Right,
like a junkie in Kensington. You bet.
I mean, we've all seen dandelions grow out of a little crack in the concrete.
Mm-hmm.
Heck yeah.
Give it a couple hundred years. And then we want to talk in terms of thousands of years. That's a lot of data.
No, literally, if you leave a fence line in Iowa unattended, you will have mulberries on it because birds will eat mulberries and they will shit them sitting on your fence.
This is very true. And those mulberries will eat the fence. And the fence will then be inside of the tree.
You bet.
Yes, and now your fence is a tree.
And by the way, they are incredibly nutritious and tasty.
The mulberries?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, they're good. Mulberry wine, we got to try that this year.
Mulberry wood is very good,
shout out to red mulberries, y'all.
Yeah.
Mulberry wood is very good to use to cook stuff on the grill, too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, get it down to coals.
Good for tool handles, too. I make axe handles, rake handles.
Didn't think of that.
Oh, nice.
But now I am. Thank you.
Yeah,
awesome.
It's strong.
Cool. We'll have to try some of that.
But, yeah. So, yeah, that mound in Dayton is tiny. And it's really hard to imagine that it looks like that 2,000 years ago.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I mean, if anything that I know right now is that we've been lied to, period. You know?
Yeah, and nobody wants to be that guy. Nobody wants to have to sing that song, but you can't call it an accident. You can't say, oh, they forgot to carry the one. Oh, they thought it was... no, it's all the signs point to it in intentional deception.
They didn't convert from the imperial system to the metric.
Yeah, they did. Oh, it was metric.
They
Sorry,
missed
guys. It wasn't
Mars because this team was on metric. This team was on standard.
Oops.
Honest mistake.
Yeah, $20 billion honest mistake.
We forgive you. Let's double your budget.
You need more money.
Fix it.
We're going to need more money to get to the bottom of this. We're going to form a commission to figure out the truth.
That's right. Just like more taxes will solve climate change, right?
Werner von Braun would be very proud of his products these days.
Most likely. So, all right, man. Well, I think we gotta wrap this one up. Yeah, we really appreciate you coming on. This was awesome.
Thanks for letting me vent. Thanks for reading the book. Thanks for promoting the book. If you guys want to talk again sometime, I'd love to chat with you.
Okay. Yeah, dude.
Awesome. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we can figure something out in the future. We'll leave a link for your book, the Amazon link, in our description.
Thank you.
And then you want us to put your Instagram and YouTube down there too? People can visit that?
Yeah.
All right, cool. So reach out, get a hold of Jon. Yeah, like I said, I would highly recommend the book. Mr. Jon Butler.
Sir Jon Butler.
But
yeah, definitely check out the book, Castle and the Pasture. It's a great read and has a ton of great information and makes you think. So, if you guys like this show, please like, follow, subscribe, share.
Tell your grandparents.
Yeah.
Tell your librarian.
That's right.
Tell your local librarian.
Tell her to get that on a hard copy and store it somewhere.
Right.
Because that is her job and she doesn't really have a say.
Follow us on Instagram at Iowa Talk Guys _podcast.
Follow us on X, Twitter at Iowa Talk Guys.
On Rumble and YouTube at Iowa Talk Guys.
And always remember,
don't eat the yellow cake.
Don't eat the yellow snow.
And don't confuse belief with knowledge.
Ooh,
there we go.
Good one.
Deep.
You got one, E-Rock?
E-Rock.
No, just don't keep your head in the sand. I thought that was good earlier.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
All right. Iowa Talk Guys.
Out.
Hi. Good night, everybody.
And I'd rather be here. I'd rather be here. So thank you very much. Very nice. Appreciate it.